let's start with. Again, it's kind of slow this time of year, but in the last few days we've had departures, put it that way, and kind of running along the same theme here. We had Jovic being sold to Fiorentina, which is a little bit shocking because we initially thought it was going to be a loan deal. Victor Chus sold to Cadiz, and both on similar deals in the sense that they're basically gone for free, and Real Madrid just shed their salaries, although in the case of Chus, it's nothing astronomical. But they retained the rights to future sale on both of them. And another one that was reported by, I think, Marco or asked today, I can't remember, Sergio Santos, the Castilla right back. He'll also be sold and will obtain 50% of his rights. He's reportedly going to Leganes. That might be more of a minor point, although I'd like to get the Castilla guys on at some point in the next week or two to talk about Sergio Santos and those kinds of departures. But I think we can start with Jovic because that's the more interesting one, and that's the more, relevant and big headline topic right now. How surprised are you that this is just an outright sale and no longer a loan?
Not that surprised. And I think I saw a lot of people criticizing the deal, and I get it. Like, there's no transfer fee. And Jovic still had 3 years left on his contract. So we signed him for, what was it, 65 million? So that was still like 30 million left to amortize on his contract. So that's what you needed just to break even on the deal. And so you're selling him for zero. You're losing. It's going to be a 30 million loss on the book right there. But his wages were so large and like a big portion. Like, I think it's hard to find good data on like what players' salaries and wages are, but I'm pretty sure Jovic was really high up there. Like, he was among like the high mid tier team, so like 10 million gross range, and like that's pretty significant. And so when you think about the fact, so those 3 years you still have him on the books, like that's 30 million, and you get him, Isco, Marcelo, and Bale off the books. I think that's kind of going to be close to like 60 million gross in wages off the book. Obviously, it's offset a little bit by Uger and Chewin, but you're still net positive, like big time. So I think from just a wage perspective, like Real Madrid is in a really healthy place right now. If they could get Hazard off this and Mariano, I think they would be really, really happy. But more than likely, Hazard will stay. Mariano, we'll see. I don't know that he'll end up leaving. So I think just from the perspective of getting the wages up, I think Real Madrid's happy. And then if Jovic kills it and Fiorentina go on to sell him, Real Madrid could recoup some of that investment. So like maybe he kills it and Fiorentina sells for 30, 40 million. Real will get half of that. So it's not a total like dead end deal. I get it. It's like on paper, it looks really frustrating, but Fiorentina appeared to be the only team interested. So when you only have one team, and I think Real Madrid don't want to go down the path that they went with Gareth Bale a few years back, where you just didn't make the deal work. I think they were willing to make the deal work and just get those wages off the books.
Yeah, that's basically the way you have to spin it. And the way I worded it in my column, and that's up on the website, pinned on the website if you guys are interested in reading my thoughts. But I wrote extensively about it yesterday when we initially found out that this was no longer a loan deal. And the way I worded it was, if you had told us in 2019 that we were going to basically have 3 goals and a handful of appearances over the course of 3 years, and then we would quote unquote sell him for free, it would have been devastating news. It would have been like taking a harpoon into our hearts. Like, it would have been like, what? That sounds like a disaster. And it is. And quite frankly, it is. I'm not saying it's not. But I think now, given the circumstances, it's a tough pill to swallow. It's one of those things that you just got to cut your losses. And it's one of the hardest things to do in business, whether it's running a club or running a business, any business, is getting to the point of realization that instead of doubling down on your investment, you have to just cut ties and cut loose and cut your losses and accept it. And I think this was a situation where it clearly wasn't working. Benzema's not slowing down. He's never going to get benched, essentially, unless his legs are falling off his body, like literally. You could argue he might get rested more next season, but with the World Cup and him getting older and all that stuff, still, like, how many times is it going to be? You have the Hazard / Rodrigo false nine as an option to fall back on next season in rare games that it does, if that you do have to play without Benzema. We'll also get to the Mayoral talking point in a second. I think the situation was really, I think we're happy to just shed his salary. That's where we're at. So shedding his salary, and you really hope, like all of us, every single Real Madrid fan should just be hoping and praying that Jovic succeeds at Fiorentina, because not least because it's the right thing to do, to just wish a player the best and to have a good career. But really, like, from a financial perspective, we need him to succeed so that if Fiorentina are able to flip him, then you can actually make some money off it. Mind you, I don't think it's going to be a lot of money, even if that does happen. So it's not like I'm expecting, for Fiorentina to sell him for 100 million, we get 50 million. You know what I mean? That's probably not going to happen. So I'm not saying it's going to be a significant amount either way. But the reality is that you got rid of his salary, and that was a big deal to me. And also just opening up a roster spot. Florentino has said, I just mixed up Florentino and Fiorentina and put them into one word. Florentino has said that, we're not going to get new signings unless departures happen, and this is one of them. So who a new signing is, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's going to be a big name. It may very well be a Mayoral type figure, although I'm not even sure if that's 100% necessary for next season, but we can talk about it. So, Matt, it's just a sad ending, and I know this one probably hurts for you especially. I personally believe, I don't know if you read my article yesterday, because you had food poisoning.
I did.
So, okay, I figured that any Jovic content written, you would drag your sick corpse to a computer to read it, to consume it. But you saw the wink. I winked at you in one paragraph.
I did. Yeah. I did.
So I still believe he's going to be a good player, and I know you do as well. I don't know what's going to happen with Odriozola yet, but if he stays at Fiorentina, on the off chance, another talking point we can get to, because there's a report that Lucas Vazquez is going to play more right winger next season. I'd like to follow this guy. I'd like to follow him, and I'd like for him to succeed, and I hope he does.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna watch some Fiorentina games. Everybody knows I hope he succeeds. We talked about it briefly on a different Tapas episode. My only concern is Fiorentina the right tactical setup. I think Vincenzo Italiano's amazing manager, and so hopefully he's the guy that can really invest in Jovic and get the best out of him, because at the end of the day, Jovic has excelled when coaches believe in him and really take the time with him and want to make it work with him. So it's not so much Jovic forcing a coach's hand. Like he kind of needs his hand held. So we'll see if Fiorentina is that type of setup and can give him those conditions to thrive, or if it just doesn't work out. I'm really hoping for him. Like, this guy needs a turn of luck, and I hope Fiorentina's the right spot.
On that note, directly related, multiple reports. Multiple reports. I think it was a report in AS. I don't know what I'm saying. AS reported that Carlo wants Mayoral back, sees him as a good fit, always liked him at his Roma days. Obviously, before Jose Mourinho joined that team. And let's be honest, like, you and I tracked him. He did well at Getafe in limited minutes given the circumstances. Do you like the idea of bringing back Mayoral, or do you think it's better for him to stay elsewhere?
I'm fine with it. If Mayoral wants to give it a go for a year and see, and I think he'll play under 1,000 minutes, if that. And because I think Eden Hazard's probably going to take most of those minutes for replacing Benzema, maybe even Rodrigo. And so I don't I don't think he's going to get many chances, but he's proven at Roma and Getafe that like he's got a pretty good goals per minute ratio, and he's become a much better finisher since
Yeah.
his move to Italy and since coming back to La Liga. Like, he's a much better player than what he was at Levante. And I mean, he
Yes.
topped our loan tracker rankings that 1 year at Roma. So he's a solid player. I honestly think he'll do more than Mariano or Jovic most likely in that role, and that's an upgrade. Like if you look at it just year versus year, it's an upgrade.
I
I
think
don't think he's a better player than Jovic, but he might work better for this team.
I think that's the part that I agree with. It's that um like Jovic needs to go play. I actually think if you're Mayoral, you're looking at your career, and if I'm Mayoral, I would look at this and say the Leganeses, the Getafes, the Levantes, the whoever's will always be there for me. This might be a good opportunity to come in for 1 year at Real Madrid and show that I can do something in limited playing time. Maybe prove that I can be like a Nacho or Lucas Vasquez of the forward role. Can I do that? If it doesn't work out, I can go back to the career of playing for some mid-table La Liga teams, maybe even like the ceiling of a Roma. If it doesn't work out at Real Madrid next season, I'm giving it a shot if I'm Mayoral. To your point about efficiency, I don't know if we talked about this particular metric. He was first in La Liga this season in goals per shot. Talk about being cold, barely touching it, barely shooting it, and scoring every time you shoot it. He led the league. I think it's a good gamble. I was mentioning this to Lucas last week on the mailbag that I actually would have liked. There was a fringe report about Dzeko joining Real Madrid. That's a signing that I actually would have preferred. Like that, because I think Dzeko
Yeah.
hits the sweet spot of a really, really good player, but at the tail end of his career, who might be okay with chasing a championship and playing random minutes if Benzema can't play. I will say about Mayoral, he is obviously not even close to, tying Benzema's shoes. It's two completely different levels of footballer, right? It's like Benzema's one of the greatest strikers in club history. I have him as number 2. You're just not like that's what you're competing with. You're not going to provide what Benzema provides. So I'm emphasizing that very dramatically because I want people to know in no way would I ever compare the two. But I do want to say that from a player profile, Mayoral emulates Benzema in the sense that he likes to drop deep. He likes to do the link-up play, defends, and he can also finish. And that, to me, is the biggest difference between him and Hazard, is that Hazard can do the link-up stuff that Benzema does to a degree, but he cannot defend the way Benzema does, and he cannot score the way Benzema does. Mayoral can at least finish the chances. Not to say Hazard can't, but like Mayoral is more pure in that sense as a pure fit in that role, and also works really hard off the ball. So I get it. So yeah, I'm okay with this signing. But I would say I'd be very skeptical about how much he would actually play. But if he can actually provide in those limited minutes, I think it's a good idea.